Hey guys, so let me see, I'll turn my windshield wipers to intermittent. I don't know how long I'll do a video because it's raining out and I don't want to be annoyed by you guys listening to, I won't be annoyed, I guess you'll be annoyed with the windshield wipers going on and on and on. So it's just like a misty yuckiness right now. I'm kind of disappointed because it's like 41 degrees out, and I was saying to myself, I think I'm going to go for a walk today. And then I said, well, I got to go get my medicine, because as you guys were with me yesterday, which I'll uploaded and put that video live today. So if you haven't watched the one that talks about being embarrassed, go watch that video. So yeah, I went to go get that medicine yesterday, but it wasn't ready until 6 p.m. Well, last night, my husband had to take my father-in-law's car because, so it's maple season here in the North Country, and the sap is flowing like crazy right now because it's nice and, I say warm, right? 40 during the day, and it gets down into the 20s at night, and it's perfect sugaring weather. And so during the day, the sap is flowing, and my husband cannot keep up with the sap. And yeah, so he went and bought some barrels and to store the sap in. Unfortunately, I guess all of them leaked. 8 of them he bought. Every single one of them is leaking. I think today the guy was going to come. He's from Rochester. I think he was going to bring him some more barrels today. Well, anyway, he was frustrated and left last night around 6, maybe 5:30. Took my father-in-law's truck to go get something welded on his evaporator pan. And then my father-in-law came in at like 7, no, maybe it was around 6:30. And he's like, he was all done. Whatever he was doing in the sugar shack, he was done. And so I said, do you want to take my car home so you don't have to just stay here? And he's like, do you mind? I'm like, no, go ahead. Well, as soon as he left, I got a notification that my prescription was ready. I'm like, oh, I was going to go back and get that after 6 today. So here I am now, going to run out and go get that. Yeah, I think my husband is maybe feeling a little over his head in the sugaring thing. He kept expanding and trying to improve his production every year. Again, we started off with like buckets, and I think he put out like 100 buckets. Maybe not 100. Maybe between him and his friend, they had 100 buckets. And but when you have a bucket, right, it just drips into the bucket. When you change and go to maple sugaring lines, you put more than one, and you can put more than one bucket too. But he was putting like more than one hole, and then he added a vacuum system this year, and it just like seems to go. He gets a lot more. Right. Plus, I think he did 250 taps this year, and when you're, 250 plus the vacuum system, plus a bigger main line, like all this stuff is resulting in way more sap. I don't think he was prepared for it. Obviously he wasn't, since he was running out a couple of days ago to go buy some more containers to store the sap in. So he's got 2 different ways he's got to store the sap. Well, more than 2, I guess, 3 ways. One is the sap that's stored near the tree before he pumps it into his tank that he uses on the UTV that brings it to the sugar shack. And when he gets to the sugar shack, he then takes that sap and puts it into another holding tank that goes through a reverse osmosis, which separates the sap from water. So it removes a lot of the water content, so it doesn't take as much time to boil to turn into syrup. So once he goes through the reverse osmosis, he then takes that sap and puts it into another container, and then he's got another container that's got the water in it. They call it permeate. If you saw, I put a video up a couple of Travel Time Chit Chats ago about that. So he is getting more containers for that. But last night he was stressed, and he didn't get back until, maybe 10 o'clock. It was pretty late. It was 10 o'clock. And excuse me. And so he got back at 10, and I didn't go to bed till midnight. And he was, I think it was around 2:30 this morning. I heard like a thump noise that woke me up from my sleep. And for those, I don't know if I told you guys that I found him laying on the floor. Did I tell you guys that? So a couple of nights ago, I heard a thump, and I got up and I went out to the kitchen. I opened our bedroom door, and our bedroom door goes right into the living room, and we got cathedral ceilings, and it leads right into the kitchen. So it's all like an open floor plan type of thing. So I look and I see him laying on the ground. So I yell to him, and he doesn't respond. And I yell again as I'm walking towards him. I'm telling you, flashback to when I found my mother deceased a couple months ago, and got my heart going. I started getting chest pains again. Ends up being he had a cramp. I don't think I did tell you guys this. So he had a cramp. He woke up with a cramp in his leg or his groin, one or the other. But he woke up with a cramp, and he went to go drink some water to help with the cramp. And the pain from the cramp was so bad, it made him faint, and he fell. Knocked him out, clear, cold, because he didn't hear me or move when I yelled to him the first time. Thankfully, the second time he moved as I was walking towards him. So so that made me nervous, and I'm like, listen, you got to drink more during the day. You can't just wait till you have a cramp. Like, be proactive. Excuse me. There's a deer, 2 deer right over there. That's why I've never seen deer right here, right in the back. We're in town now. School's right there. All right, so I say a few years ago, like 20 years ago, when I was like 30, I was going through a period of time where they thought I had multiple sclerosis. I had lost eyesight in one of my eyes. I had what they call optic neuritis. I had to go get a PICC line in, and I had to go for a week every day for a high dose of steroids to get my eyesight to come back. And at the time, they were like, have you had any numbing and tingling? And I'm like, yeah, I've had some on my lower back, buttock area. So then they did some testing, and I had a doctor told me I had multiple sclerosis. So then I went for a second opinion, went all the way to New Hampshire, to Dartmouth College, and met with a doctor there, and he said, yep, you've got multiple sclerosis. Although I had no lesions on my brain, I had all of these other symptoms that would lead them to say I have MS. Well, so I started taking injections, but one thing that I kept getting, and I don't know if it was related to the MS or not, was I was getting cramps in my foot. And there was a time I got a cramp so strong that it broke the bone in my foot. And I had to get a walking boot and wear that and stuff till it healed. But that's how bad that cramp was. And they were severe. I remember they were painful. And I still get them from time to time, but nothing like Tony. He seems to get those cramps. He gets cramps a lot. And he probably needs to take like a potassium supplement or something like that. They did put him on gabapentin to help with that. But obviously it's not working because he still gets them. So it turns out, by the way, that I don't have MS, even though they did a spinal tap, because for some odd reason, there was one time in my 30s that I had a headache like you wouldn't believe. And Tony was bringing me to the emergency room because it was like literally the worst pain I've ever felt. And I still think it is the worst pain I've ever felt. Even from childbirth, the worst pain. I literally felt like brain was going to come seeping through my ears. Like the pressure in my head was just overwhelming. So I got to the emergency room, and they ended up doing a spinal tap on me. And I ended up having too much spinal fluid in my brain, in my skull cavity. That's what the problem was. So they had to release some of that. But then they checked my spinal fluid at the time, because when you've got MS, there's more than two, but two of the bigger things they look for is they do a spinal tap, and that will tell them whether you have MS. And they did that, and they said, yep, you have MS. And then they do an MRI of your brain, and they look for these lesions on your brain, which every time they would do the MRI, it would always come back negative, that I didn't have any lesions. But the doctor was still treating me for MS. And then we had a doctor change. That doctor left. That was out of Burlington, Vermont, that neurologist. And they need to fix that parking lot entrance. All right, this guy, why are you walking out in this rain with your little one? Maybe she lives right there and she's coming over to the drugstore. So this new doctor looked at my chart and said, no, you don't have MS. Because of the MRI kept showing nothing was wrong with my brain. Which probably all are going to say, yes, there is something wrong with it, just not MS. So I discontinued these injections I was taking and pretty much stopped going to the doctors and said, okay, I don't have MS. But in the back of my mind, I was like, well, listen, I went to 2 doctors. I even went to Dartmouth, and he said, yes, you have MS. So in the back of my mind, I kept saying, all right, I'm just not going to do anything until the MS gets to a point where I need to start taking medicine again. Well, a few years ago, I started having some neuropathy in my feet, some nerve pain. It felt like my foot was, it was tingly, like I had fallen asleep, and almost like frostbitten, where it kind of is cold and burning feeling. It's I don't know if you've ever had frostbite. And so I ended up going to a doctor, and they did a nerve test on my foot, which is very painful, by the way. That was not fun at all. And by the way, I'm at the drugstore waiting in line. So I'll probably turn you off when I pull up here, by the way. So I ended up having that test, and they came back and said, you have neuropathy. And my normal doctor at the time also had said, let's get another MRI of your head, neck, and spine. So she wanted to double check to see whether or not lesions had formed for the MS. Let's just double check everything again. They got the result back. Everything looked good on the MS front. They said that the neuropathy in my foot, by the way, was from diabetes, which at that time I was newly diagnosed, and it was somewhat controlled. Like, I was really surprised that in such that short amount of time it had already done damage to my foot, which I guess you can never repair it. But the doctor came back, the neurologist, and said, you do not have MS. Don't ever say you have MS. I never even want to see you in this office again saying you have MS. I'm like, okay. Like, honestly, for the last, I don't know, 18 years, I was living like I didn't have MS. I wasn't taking any medicine, and I wasn't going to any doctor for it. It wasn't until I had this nerve pain that the doctor, a different doctor, had ordered the MRIs and stuff. So, all right, hold on, it's my turn. It's my turn. Yeah, I'm going to turn you off because I don't know if they can hear me talking to you. That was $40. I can't believe it was $40. I wanted to see how many months they wrote it for. 90 days. All right, 90 days. I know I was talking to you guys the other day. Normally I only pay $25 for a prescription. So, wow. I wasn't expecting her to say $40. But I will say that I was kind of like, well, first of all, I didn't pay for that prescription. So we have Blue Cross Blue Shield, and one of the things that they have are these like health advantage things. My Blue Wellness is what it's called. So I had this Blue Wellness card, and you can earn points, which is dollars, on these cards by doing certain things. So because I am a diabetic, when I get my A1C checked, I can upload that twice a year, and I'll get like $50 or $75. And then if you take this health assessment every year, you get money for that. I know there's like all these different things. There's let's say you wanted to lose weight, you can go online every day or set a goal that you're going to walk or work out or do something, and you log in every day and say that you've done that, and at the end of whatever the time period is for that, you will get a monetary reward that they throw onto this car. So it's like what is it called, an HSA, like a health savings account or something like that, where you can go to like the pharmacy, or I can pay my co-pays with that. I can pay, honestly, I should have used all $250 and paid for my emergency room visit, because that was $250. Or maybe it was $350. I can't remember. Maybe I think it was $250. I think $350 was, I just paid. So in December, my mom went to the hospital because she couldn't walk. Her knee was really bothering her. Ends up being, she had an infection in her knee, and they ended up saying it was gout. But she went to the, I called an ambulance because she couldn't walk on it, and I couldn't lift her to bring her. So an ambulance came. I paid that bill last month. And then the day that she passed away, I called 911. They sent an ambulance out, which turns out they didn't need an ambulance because she was deceased. And the police got there first, and the police checked her and said, yeah, she's deceased. And so the ambulance walked in the door, and they turned around and left right away because they didn't even like see my mom. So I had to pay that bill, $350 for them just to show up. Kind of disappointing. It's like, you didn't even transport her. And I didn't ask for an ambulance, but obviously, I didn't know. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know. I just called saying she's not responsive, and I didn't go and like try and wake her or anything, because I could tell when I saw her. If you've ever seen a dead person, you can tell. The color was gone from her. She just didn't look like she was alive. So yeah, so I just paid that bill. That was $350. So now I gotta go to the bank because my husband and I are going to the casino tonight. We've got a room. So I get a free room. I get 4 free rooms a month, and they break them up into 2-week increments. So every 2 weeks I get two nights. So I can do like back-to-back nights if I wanted to. I can do, one night here, one night there, one night a week, however I want to do it. So we went a couple weeks ago and had a great time. And last week I tried to spend the night with my sister, but they were full they didn't have any free rooms available. So now I need to fill out this form. So last week I booked one for this week. But I need some money. Because dropping the pen. Oh, where's my glasses? I get to see me go through the thing for the bank here. Gosh, golly gee. What is that? That's a deposit. I'm not depositing. I want money. Here's a withdrawal. Of course, I don't know my account number. Probably should write it down sometime. Maybe if I'm really good with my editing, I will fast forward through this. I know, how boring, right? Watching me do this. I don't have checkbook for this account. Amount to be withdrawn. Where do I see your signature? Member signature. Boring. What is today? Yeah, I know that today is the 23rd. Oh, it's 3/23/2023. Oh, what a great thing. Okay. I don't have my account number. Send me a message. I need to decide if I want to grab something for lunch or eat at home. I think I might eat at home. Look, I got my Cardinal shirt on today. It used to be my mom's. I took it out of her closet. Today's my dad's birthday. So, happy heavenly.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
Just a withdrawal today?
Yes, it's from the joint account with Anthony.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want the cash back any certain way?
No, it doesn't matter.
All right, I'll have it right out.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, so happy heavenly birthday to my father. He was born in 42. So that would make him, what, 81? He would have been 81 years old. He passed away when he was 76 from Alzheimer's. So I'm trying to think about what I want to do for lunch. It is 11:30, and I think I got some leftovers at home. I made a meatloaf a couple nights ago. I got meatloaf left over, and I've got some stuffed shells left over. I've got a pork loin. Yeah, I probably ought to just go home and eat some leftovers. I don't know, pork loin, my husband marinated it in Italian dressing. It just didn't smell right. Like, not that the pork loin was bad, but like the meal itself just didn't even smell good. I didn't eat dinner that night. And the stuffed shells, they might be okay. I might have those. I don't know. I'm hungry, but not hungry. I don't know. Weird. I always feel weird talking to you when there is a camera right here. I'm sure she can't hear me because I think she is off doing something else. But so we're gonna go do that. Spend the night at the casino. I gotta swing by my mom's house tomorrow morning and pick up some pictures. So I've been selling some of her wall art. And there was a lady who actually lives in the town I'm in right now who wants one of the items. And my mom's house is like 30 to 40 minutes from here. The lady's getting out of her car behind me. I'm like, what are you getting out for? Maybe she has to get her purse. Think they can hear me?
Can I help you with anything else today, Tamara?
No, that's going to be it.
All right, you have a good day.
Thank you. Funny. Oh my gosh, and I can smell. It smells like the Chinese restaurant, which is way down the road. But I can. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. Oh, that Chinese restaurant smells delicious. I wish we had good Chinese. The problem is it smells good and it tastes good, but the health department has written them up so many times for stuff. And the last time they had maggots in the rice, and so that's just gross. Ugh. So I have not been eating there. I refuse to go there, honestly. I've not gone since I heard that had happened. Which would make sense though, because I just think they're like, if you ever gone to, I've never gone. I can go right on right here. I've never gone to China, but you know, they have those like open air markets, and you know, like in Wuhan, and they have, they got like chickens hanging, and I've watched some videos where they're like on TikTok lives and they're cleaning fish and stuff, and I just think their standards of how they keep things clean and stuff is just different from us. And yeah, so I don't really care for going to eat there. There's a place in the town over in Canton that does only takeout now since COVID, and their Chinese is pretty good. In the summertime, sometimes Tony and I will go and get that to go, and we'll pick it up and then go to the little park and sit and eat our Chinese. But this place is a buffet, and I mean, again, their food is good, but it's all that stuff you don't know about behind those kitchen doors, and it's just, I don't know, just grosses me out. So yeah, I don't do it. Tony still does. He'll go on his own. At lunchtime, sometimes he'll be like, I'm gonna go to Chinese. I'm like, okay, see ya. I'm not going. As much as I love Chinese food, and when we go out to eat, or when we go out to travel, I'll eat at what's that Chinese chain? We don't have one around here, but sometimes I'll look for it specifically. Can't think of what it's called, but I'll look for it. Hey, speaking of not remembering something, yesterday when I was doing my travel time chit chat with you guys, I was telling you a story about my friend Garth, and then I said, I don't remember why I was telling you that story. So the whole thing was, as I was editing the video, well, kind of not really editing, I was fast forwarding through parts just to make sure the video looked okay before I downloaded and uploaded it. I don't like talk for an hour with you guys and then go home and watch me talk for an hour. Because sometimes, like, I listen to my story that I shared yesterday. I re-listen to that because that just makes me smile and laugh. The story about my mom at Kohl's. Yeah. So I was talking to you guys about being able to work for yourself, and I said job in quotes and all this other stuff. And I was saying how my friend had posted on Facebook about being at the doctor's and how he was waiting, and you could tell he was waiting, and the things he was saying was like he's just a very positive person, looks at everything as a glass half full. He's very rarely a glass half empty, or at least he never portrays that to the public. I'm sure we all have days where we are a glass half full, half empty person, but he's definitely very positive. And then I couldn't remember after telling you about what he was posting while I was telling you that. And the thing was, I commented to him and I said, when I go to the doctors and the doctor's running behind, I'm always reminded that the doctor, especially my doctor, my main family doctor, he always seems to book like half-hour increments, not like 10 minutes. Like my mother's doctor was always late, always double books. His waiting room was always full. And he just never really seemed like he would spend much time with you to answer your questions. Where my doctor, sometimes I'm like, don't you got other patients to see? Like, I'm thinking that to myself. Like, he never makes me feel rushed. But being a self-employed person, I don't have to get back to work. I'm not signing vacation or running out at my lunch or signing sick leave or whatever. You know, like, this is the flexibility of when you work for yourself makes life so much easier when things like that happen where a doctor is running behind. So that's what I wanted to say to you guys yesterday, and I couldn't remember what it was until I was watching the video back, and I was like, okay, there I go, talking about Garth, and now I remember what it was because I had just watched what I was saying before I was sharing this story about him. It's funny when I mention my friends or, you know, things among people, whether they're friends or not friends, like, you know, I'll mention like the bearded picker, and I consider him a friend, but it's not like we're buddies and we hang out. Or I'll mention, oh, NC Picker, I saw on the Trash to Cash podcast and stuff like that. I'll mention them, and we're not friends. They don't know me. They don't know me from Adam. Where did that saying come from? But they don't know who I am. But I enjoy watching them and listening to them. Again, what I like about their podcast is I watch it on YouTube, but I like it because it's like this travel time chit chat where you don't have to look at me. You can just put the sound on and listen. I do that in the morning. I listen to the Timcast IRL, and I really kind of like his show. Although my daughter, when I was telling her I was watching Timcast, she goes, "Is that Tim so-and-so?" I'm like, I don't know the guy's name, Timcast. And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you listen to him and you watch him. I'm like, tell me about him. Like, why do you say that? And because I find he's not so extreme as some of the other, because he talks politics, and he's not so extreme as some of the other political people. Like, all right, so I used to watch. I do not watch him anymore. I think he's only on Rumble now. I don't even know. But Dan Bongino, I used to watch him. Steven Crowder, stopped watching him. So far extreme. They are, I'm not somebody who gets offended that often. And I wouldn't even say that they really offend me, but maybe it is. I don't know. When I'm listening to them, I just get really angry by what they talk about. And our local radio station, when Rush Limbaugh passed away, they ended up picking up Dan Bongino, and I think it's been like a couple years that Dan Bongino's been on the radio. When I go to Vermont, they have Fox Around the Nation or Fox Across the Nation. I always want to say it's like Jimmy Kimmel, but it's not. It's I know Jimmy's somebody, but I like listening to him. I cannot stand Dan Bongino. I cannot stand the way he talks. I cannot stand what he says. He was talking about, because he's the only talk show I really have to listen to, except for public radio. And honestly, I can't stand the public radio most of the time because it makes me just want to go to sleep. But so every now and then I'll put on talk radio. Honestly, thank you guys for watching my travel time chit chats, so I can record instead of putting on the radio and listening to them. Music these days makes me cry, so I try not listen to music until I get over that hump of this grief period. But Dan was talking about Trump getting arrested, and he was talking about the New York DA, and all he kept doing was slamming how overweight that DA is, and how can we expect him to do a good job when he can't even control his waistline. And he calls them, I think, Twinkies, Mr. Twinkies, or something like that. I don't know. Just really fat shaming. And obviously, you all are watching me, and you know I'm not a thin person. I'm not an average weight. I am overweight. I am considered morbidly obese. I feel like I work at it most of the time. Obviously, not all the time, but most of the time. I do feel like there's a chemical something in my body that makes it so it's harder for me to lose weight. I mean, obviously I'm insulin resistant. There's just some people have a harder time. I know people who can eat anything they want and they do not gain a pound. And they're lazy. They don't they don't exercise, but they just don't gain any weight. And then there's people who can be, not that I exercise, right? I go for walks every now and then, but I'm definitely not on a regular going to work out. I don't eat great all the time. I feel like 75% of the time, I feel like I eat pretty good. I don't feel like I'm overindulging. I'm definitely not overindulging since I'm on Trulicity. But even with taking like Trulicity, it's just, I'm not having the results like other people are. And we cut back a lot on carbs, although this week I was saying we had stuffed shells. We probably have pasta once every 6 months. We do like zucchini noodles. I use cauliflower a lot instead of rice and that kind of stuff. But so Dan Bongino was just trashing on this DA guy about his size. Like, listen, if you want to crap on him about his politics and how he's using his office in a political way instead of, by the law, if you've got comments about that, like, okay, I'll listen to that. But the minute you start fat shaming and getting into personal attacks, I don't like that. And, because, I mean, Steven Crowder is the same way. I stopped listening to him over a year ago. He was just doing a lot of personal attacks also. And I don't like that. I'm not a big personal attack person. Like, I might give you a hard time over your belief system, or maybe the way you present something. Or the other thing with Dan Bongino is he yells a lot, and he's like, I don't know, he does like this baby talk, goo goo gaga. If you guys ever watch him, if you know what I'm talking about, I wrote a letter to my local radio station because I've been having issues when I head into Messina, which is where my ma used to live. When I head into Messina, there's a part in the road where I lose the signal, and pretty much when I'm in that town the whole time. And I'll tell you, Saturday mornings when I'm garage sailing, they have a handle on the law on that station, and I really like to listen to those legal questions. It's very entertaining. And I lose it when I go to Messina to garage sale on Saturday mornings. And I sent them a message saying, hey, what's up with your like towers, your signal or whatever? It's not very good in Messina. It used to be good until about 2 years ago. It just started getting really, really bad. And if I'm outside of the city limits, I get it no problem. So it's not the distance from the towers. There's something that's blocking it within the city, and I don't know what that could be. But so I mentioned it to him, and then I said also, if Dan Bongino is coming up for renewal, I really would love for you guys to switch over to Fox Across the Nation, Jimmy Fallon. I think that's his name, Jimmy Fallon. Because it almost sounds like Fallon, Jimmy Fallon. Who I like Jimmy Fallon. He's funny. But Jimmy Fallon. And so he replied back and said that they do have an issue in Messina. He lives in Messina. But they've like worked on it and put this booster or something in. He says it's gotten better. I haven't noticed at all that it's gotten better. I feel like it's still bad from 2 years ago. And then he said thanks for the feedback about Dan Bongino, type of thing. But yeah, I'm only one person, so it would take a lot more people complaining and not listening. I mean, I was listening to him the other day because even though I don't like him, sometimes I'll just listen to him because there's not much else. And I wasn't a huge Rush Limbaugh fan either. I very rarely would listen to him. But I would. I mean, there's people like the Timcast show that if he was on the radio, I would still listen to him if he did a podcast or, if he recorded it and I could listen to it later. Because I just find what he says, I don't know, I'm more in line with how I feel maybe he's more of like a libertarian, which is where I feel like I land on the political spectrum. And I feel like he brings some good points across, him and the team that he has on with him. So I like them. But yeah, Dan, don't like him at all. Don't like him at all. But I'm always trying to find some really good podcasts to listen to, things that I don't have to watch. I can just listen. I struggle with finding really good stuff. I know there's like a lot of people who listen to like murder mystery things. I've never really gotten into that. I will say one time somebody had mentioned a murder mystery podcast, and my husband and I started listening to one a few years ago, and we listened to one episode, and it was about the guy who committed those murders in Montreal. I think he was drowning a cat or something like that live on video, and so people were like watching those videos about that, and he says it's something to do with like 2 guys and a pick, or 2 girls and a pick, or I don't know. It was something along those lines, but it ended up being I made the really stupid mistake of Googling this guy to find out more about him afterwards, because the show was kind of disturbing. And normally stuff like that doesn't bother me, but then when you realize that this is like real life stuff, that's what's really started to bother me. And I went and I Googled his name and Googled this other storyline that was part of this, of like he was mimicking these other people. 2 guys and a something. And I found this video. I was so stupid and watched it. And it was a video of a guy getting murdered. So they had videotaped it. And there is, I'm assuming on the dark web or something, there's some website you can go to, which I didn't realize that's really what it was, or I don't know if I knew or didn't know, but I watched it, and oh my gosh, that bothered me for so long, because I'm like, this is a real live human being. This is not TV. This is not make pretend. This is really happening to this person who has a family, all this other stuff. And I think he was a businessman it wasn't in the US. He was from another country where this happened. But that murder stuff, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me, so I can't really watch that. But yeah, if you guys have any other really good, like anything motivational, anybody who talks motivational, like I was watching Gary Vee for a while, but I find he kind of resonates more with a younger crowd. And I'm not sure, like a lot of the talk he talks about is business and goal setting and all that kind of stuff, that, or at least the ones I watch. And I'm not really, I don't know, I guess I'm not really at that point. I really need to find some on grief and recovering from grief and loss. I bet you there's probably some really good ones out there. If anybody has any like recommendations, I'd love to hear it. But all right, I'm home. I'm going to go in and eat some lunch. Thanks a lot for coming along with me, and I will see you guys after I win at the casino. Bye.